Yes, I'm also here, making another video about the Steam Summer Sale, just like everybody else. But unlike most of the other videos, I'm going to try and give you some recommendations that you haven't seen yet. Or at least not in a while. You know what game they need to bring back? Heroes of Might and Magic. And in fact, they are, I recently found out. But until that time, you should play this, Songs of Conquest. If you don't know what Heroes of Might and Magic is, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, you're in for a treat. It is best described as a map-crawling collectathon broken up by turn-based battles. This may sound boring, but it is one of those situations where the sum of its parts is greater than the whole. Collecting loot, treasure, gear and armies on the beautiful pixel map is addicting, but trying out all your newly acquired gear and armies on the battlefield even more so. On the battle map, your hero doesn't do any fighting, but directs the armies from the sidelines. As with any tactics games worth its salt, you need to take into account height, flanking, ranged units, distance and so forth. It's all very in-depth and well put together. What's more is that attacking builds up mana for your hero, who can then throw around some magic. Anywhere from protection spells for your armies to fireballs and tornadoes. Great game, go give it a try. Okay, so this next one is not exactly a hidden gem as everybody has heard about RoboCop Rogue City by now, but it is on such a deep discount that I couldn't leave it off the list. Plus it made the Steam rating cutoff with a very positive 87% Steam rating. What else is there to say about this game? Well, one important little tidbit that you might want to know is that you will find the Ed 209. So if you, like me, are traumatized because you watched the movie when you were 5 years old, be warned. Other than this amazing shooter, RoboCop feels like a tank. His Auto 9 hand cannon feels super satisfying, there's lots of gore, and all the original actors are back and did an amazing job voicing their characters for the game. This is a labor of love, and for $4.99 it's worth picking up for sure. Switching categories here. This is one of my all-time favorite racing games. When I was young, I was absolutely addicted to Destruction Derby. Sadly, I only had an N64 and Destruction Derby 64 left a lot to be desired. But having said that, the multiplayer was pretty darn great and it left an impression. Wreckfest is basically the spiritual successor in everything but name. This game has it all. Arena derbies, regular races, lawnmower races, last man standing, hundreds of cars all packed into a large campaign mode. And this game has one of the most impressive collision models in any game. Plus you can drive a school bus and a combine. I mean, what more do you want? Now, I know some of you youngsters probably don't know who Duke Nukem is, but to put it simply, he's the most manliest man to have ever existed in a video game. Now, to be honest, he hasn't had a great run of late, but that's where Bulletstorm comes in. Bulletstorm is the most over-the-top action shooter you've played all year, I guarantee it. This is how it works. You've got your arsenal of weapons, machine guns, rocket launchers and what have you, but you also have this cool whip-looking thing to pull enemies closer. Hit them or slam them into stuff. You also have a cool slide move and a kick. Now you might ask, what do I need all this for? Well, let me explain. See, this is not just any shooter. You score points for creativity. Slamming aliens onto spikes, points. Kicking a guy into a saw, points. Blowing up multiple enemies with one grenade, extra points. The more variety, the higher your score multiplier. Now where does the Duke come in? The brilliant minds at Gearbox decided to just replace the main character with the Duke, complete with nonsensical lines like these.
Blow up that porn machine. Computer. Whatever. Who are you?
Don't sweat it, boss. We're on schedule.
Hey, I told you to blow that up, not look up the Wholesome Twins.
And it's absolutely amazing. Just for this you should get it. Plus, like I mentioned, it's just a great game in its own right. Now let's shift some gears to one of my favorite roguelike games of all time. Dungeon of the Endless is Sega at its best. But Peter, what's the big deal, you ask? Are you sitting down? Where do I even start? Okay, so you and your band of crash-landed misfits need to escape the dungeon. Each floor of the dungeon contains a randomized set of rooms you need to explore to find the exit. When you open the doors, monsters might come out. There might be a merchant, a store, science module. Where things change, however, is that you only have a certain amount of energy to keep the lights on in the rooms you've already explored. So certain rooms are going to be dark. When you open a new door, these dark rooms will also spawn enemies. All these enemies will go after your crystal, which is basically the thing keeping the lights on. This all sounds a lot more complicated than it is, but it becomes a very interesting tactical puzzle which rooms to open up and where to keep the lights on. On top of it all, you build modules in the rooms, which help you gather resources, food and science, which you can use to level characters, build offensive or defensive units in the rooms, or develop new modules to build. So if you're keeping track, now we have a roguelike combined with a tower defense game, and it works so well. This is a game you just have to play to see how good it is. For the price of a coffee, the risk is pretty low. Plus, I mean, it scores an 88% positive on Steam, so how wrong can I be? And we're continuing our streak of weird/interesting games, and if I'm not mistaken, this is also a Sega game. Where Bulletstorm was the wildest, this game will absolutely be the weirdest. Not even sure exactly how to explain what's going on here, but Catron Classic is basically a horror puzzle game. So what's this about? Well, the idea is that you climb this tower that's continually breaking down underfoot. If you're too slow, you'll plummet into the abyss or the hands of some creepy boss monster that's climbing up right behind you. You can only climb on single height blocks, so you'll be pushing and pulling blocks left, right, in and out to make a path for yourself. Due to the crumbling design of the tower, this becomes, especially in later levels, a very stressful affair. All this is accompanied by a very interesting story about a love triangle between you and two sexy ladies called Catherine with a C and Catherine with a K. Oh, and there's also goats. Lots of them. Another favorite of mine. But since I picked all the games on this list, that's not really a surprise. I love management sims. RimWorld is one of the greats. But in my opinion, there is a better one with exactly the same kind of graphics. Prison Architect. Don't get me wrong, managing a space colony on some alien planet is great, but managing a maximum security prison is on a whole other level. It's just so satisfying to see a well-designed prison running buttery smooth, only to see it all go to crap a minute later as a group of prisoners stage an escape attempt and in the process start a riot. This is a very deep management sim that has everything from electric, plumbing, security concerns, jobs for prisoners, and grants, you name it, and this game has it. What makes this even more interesting is that the prisoners are deviously clever, and they will take advantage of any mistake that you make in your designs. Be warned. When I'm working around the house, one of the most satisfying jobs to do is mowing the lawn. Just making those nice even lines, very clearly making your lawn look good where you've mowed it. Hard Space Shipbreaker is the video game equivalent of that. But instead of mowing the lawn, you dismantle old spaceships. Like in any career, you start off small with little shuttles and corvettes, taking them apart with your demolition tools and sorting the parts in their respective bins or force fields. Being that this is all done in the hard vacuum of space, the dangers are many. From floating off into space, leaks in your spacesuit, to crushing hazards when dismantling ships. But this is only the beginning. Spaceships grow larger and more dangerous as you progress in your career, with explosives on board, large power reactors that have to be dismantled in a very specific way, and many more hazards that can leave a permanent mark, if you know what I mean. Here's a game that likely doesn't need any introduction, but as this is the only platformer on this list, it better be a good one. But don't worry, it is. Rayman Legends is one of the best platformers ever created. And as you might know, there are many. I've talked about this before, but I think that the key to a good platformer is that it needs to introduce new mechanics, gimmicks or hooks with every new level, while continuously building on prior levels and bringing back some of the older mechanics it used earlier. And this is where Rayman Legends really shines. Each level is just a joy to play. You never know what you're going to get, from being chased by a dragon to a musical level to the beat of an AC/DC song. Each level brings something to look forward to and something new for you to be surprised by. From collecting all the teensies in each level to unlock optional paintings or levels, of which there are many, to character unlocks. Rayman Legends even includes most of the Rayman Origins levels as bonus levels. This game is packed full of content. I know everybody's expecting a game of CD Projekt Red on this list, so I won't disappoint. I love Cyberpunk, and The Witcher 3 is probably one of my favorite games of all time, but Thronebreaker is closely behind these two. If you're not familiar, this is a Witcher spin-off where you play as Queen Maeve, who faces an imminent invasion by the Nilfgaardian Empire, and you lead your small army to defend your empire. The surprise here is that this is not an action game, but a deck builder based on the Gwent card game introduced in The Witcher 3. Like in Songs of Conquest we talked about earlier, you explore a beautiful map collecting items, gear and armies in the form of cards. The meat and potatoes of it all is obviously the battles, and this is where the game shines. Gwent was already one of my favorite pastimes during the Witcher games, but they've expanded upon what was already there and polished it into an experience that can stand on its own. The basis is still the same. Each side is a melee, ranged and artillery row in which you assemble your army. Some cards have abilities, there are synergies and many new and different cards. The commander of each army also has a special ability that can turn the tide of battles. There will even be some cameos of Geralt and Vesemir in some of the battles. If you're a fan of The Witcher or a fan of deck builders, this is a game you have to play. This one's inspired by me rewatching the two Ghostbusters movies with my kids. There are only 2 Ghostbuster movies, mind you. 2 Ghostbuster movies and a game written by the original creators of those movies, Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis. If that's not enough, the game even features voice acting and likenesses of all the Ghostbusters. Aside from all this, it's just a darn good game, with, as you can expect, an over-the-top story about some kind of world-ending threat that I can't exactly remember at this time. Do remember that the story takes you to some very memorable places. The game plays as a third-person shooter, with your proton pack having various different modes for catching ghosts. It all feels good, and it plays really well into the lore of the movies itself. You know what? I think I might just go and start another run through this game myself. And while we're on the topic of ghosts and horror, a massively underrated horror game that we desperately need a second sequel to is The Evil Within 2. Now, I know this is not exactly a hidden gem or anything, but it's really the only one of its kind. Name me one other open world horror game like this. This is really a stealth horror game where you can explore the town of Union freely, pursuing side quests or the main story to your heart's content. What's even more impressive is that for an open world game, granted it's not a very large world, the tension and horror are great. I don't want to give too much away about the story, but one thing I'll tell you is that the fact that Sebastian, who is probably one of the most boring protagonists in any game ever, has a stake in the story by the fact that his daughter is the one holding together the simulation they all find themselves in. This was a great motivator for me to finish the story, since I just wanted them to end back up together. Anyways, great game, worth buying, especially at this low price. Oldies like me will remember the first Deus Ex and the shockwaves it sent through the gaming world with its open world and choice-based mission structures. That game hasn't aged that well, however, so instead let's talk about Deus Ex Human Revolution, the Deus Ex reboot that you didn't know you needed, unless you've played it and you didn't know. If not, here's the premise. Human Revolution plays 2 years after the AUG incident, where augmented people went crazy and started attacking normals. Now, mechanically augmented humans are ostracized. You are Adam Jensen, one such augmented human, working for Interpol, who needs to uncover a global conspiracy related to the AUG incident. This game was cyberpunk before there was cyberpunk. There are many cool augments to upgrade your character with. It involves hacking, smart vision, cloaking, and many more cool ways to play the game in your own way. I was going to put the second one here too, but it didn't make the Steam ranking cutoff. But now, it's on here anyways, secretly. Don't tell anybody. When I hear the word walking simulator, it always puts a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, even though I've played some pretty amazing ones. If you feel the same way, don't leave, because you'll be missing out on the opportunity of a lifetime. The Stanley Parable is one such game. It's a walking simulator. You have no weapons or any kind of offensive ability, really. All you can do is walk, jump, and interact, mostly with doors. But man, the story this game tells is amazing, and it's the funniest game I've ever played. Just watch this.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track. There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here. It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA. Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead. You got to this broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here, when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard.
Here's how it all starts, without too many spoilers. You wake up behind your desk in a cubicle, just a nameless employee. There's nobody around. There is, however, a hilarious narrator that narrates your every move. It's up to you to explore and figure out what the heck is going on. That's it. That's all there is to it, and it's one of the best games I've ever played. So, I've never run a cult or been in a cult, but based on what I'm seeing from Cult of the Lamb, it's quite different than what popular opinion has taught me it would be. Being a cult leader involves a lot of hacking and slashing, out in dungeon-like levels reminiscent of something like the Zeldas of old. This dungeon questing is where you find most of your followers. Often they need to be freed from other cults, which can naturally only be done with a sword or other type of weapon. On the other side of the coin, back at your home base, it's a bit more traditional. Important decisions like making them eat their own you-know-what, all of this while being a lamb, of course. Something I love is how the cutesy graphics, which actually contain quite a bit of gore, offset the serious content matter. Just a really fun game worth playing. So I love all the games on this list, but if I had to pick my absolute favorite, it'd be this one, Divinity Original Sin 2. Again, not exactly a hidden gem or even a small indie title, but it's just so good. I think I'd even choose this over Baldur's Gate 3 if I had to. Overall, the two games play very similar. You have your party of up to 4 and you just explore an open-ish map, running into interesting scenarios, making morally great decisions, and most of all, getting into fights. The battles are very similar too, turn-based tactics affairs, with Divinity's battle system actually being a bit more complicated and more fluid in some ways. Where the difference really comes in for me is the setting and setup. I like the whole story with the Elder Brain in BG3, but Divinity's setup of source magic that when used spawns Voidwoken, which are terrifying monsters from another dimension, and the story of the sorcerers that suddenly wake up with these powers is amazing. If you like BG3, this is one you definitely don't want to miss. And now, the absolute most epic game on this list, and simultaneously the simplest one. If you've ever wanted to play in your own epic kung fu movie, complete with epic takedowns, boss fights, crazy slow motion, weapons, from chainsaws to laser swords, and everything you've ever seen in a movie and wanted to do yourself, you will experience in this game. And it's all played with just 2 buttons. Yes, sure, they're right. Technically, all you do is hit button prompts, but man, look at this insanity. It just plays so good. If you take one recommendation from me, let it be this one. It is that good. And why not stick with the insanity theme for a minute and talk about Broforce, a love letter to all the 80s and 90s action movies we've all seen and loved and motivated us to get bigger biceps. Every action movie star you've ever imitated on the playground is here, from Commando to Rambo, Dirty Harry and Alan Ripley. There are over 40 bros to unlock and they all play completely different. Everything is destructible, and the story, like any good 80s action movie, is non-existent, and somehow still manages to get off the rails, taking you from a simple terrorist threat to aliens and then something about hell on earth. This is great. And you know what? Go buy this one and One Finger Death Punch and your biceps will instantly grow 3 inches. As you've probably seen, these have all been ranked by Steam rating, which means these last 2 have to be something truly special, and they are, son. They are. This penultimate game is called Monster Train, and I've talked about this game many times before, but it's just that good. It's a card battler in which you defend a monster train on its way to reignite the fires of hell and have to defend yourself from the forces of heaven, who somehow are the bad guys here, I believe. To do this, you set up a gauntlet of heroes, traps and other mechanisms to stop the bad guys from reaching the heart of your train, which happens to be on the 3rd floor and is the life force of your train, because, you know, triple-decker trains have hearts. As someone who plays quite a lot of deck builders, let me tell you, the factions, or decks you're playing with, are so good. There are great synergies to be had and many different ways to play each deck. There's just so much strategy and depth in this game, it is amazing. Again, another game I'd say you don't want to miss. And then lastly, a game I wouldn't have put on number 1, but since this goes by Steam ranking, I had to. But it's still really good. This was probably the first horror survival sim I really got invested in. I'm talking about Subnautica. On the off chance that you don't know what this game is, let me explain. You crash land in your little escape pod on a water planet. You're all alone, and all you have is what was left in the escape pod. Now it's time to gather materials, hunt and craft. The difference between this and the many other survivals out there is that there's this constant tension of running out of air. You just found a cave with some amazing resources, but your air is running out and you'll lose everything if you drown. This tension is always present, even later when you've crafted a complete submarine, because there are things in those underworld caves that don't want to be found. Another amazing game. Man, whoever put this list together really knows a lot about video games. Anyways, that's all I have for today. I hope you found some good recommendations. I mean, come on. All of these were bangers, so there has to be something. Let me know what you think, and check out these older Steam sales videos for more recommendations, and I hope to see you in the next one.